Today's video is sponsored by Anne's Fire. There is no better tool for promoting liberty than the novel Atlas Shrugged by Ayn Rand. Atlas was voted the second most influential book in America in a Library of Congress survey. Inspiring characters, a dramatic plot, and a clear vision of life's great potential all combine to excite young readers. The Ayn Rand Institute in the US runs essay contests for students worldwide. This year, the first prize for Atlas Shrugged is $25,000. Additionally, there'll be a separate competition for anyone up to the age of 25, students and non-students, from Australia, with a first prize of $1,000. This is only the second year Australian prizes have been offered, so there may be only a few entries again, which of course means there's a greater chance of winning $1,000. The deadline for submission is the 19th of September, so spread the word to young people wherever you find them. More details at the Facebook page Anne's Fire. Link in the comments. Now, the Hippocratic Oath originates from ancient Greece and was written sometime between the 5th and 3rd centuries BC. Yet one of the central tenets of that oath, first do no harm, has been systematically violated by the medical profession as a whole up until the early 20th century. In David Wooten's book Bad Medicine, Doctors Doing Harm Since Hippocrates, he claims that until the invention of antibiotics in the 1930s, doctors, in general, did their patients more harm than good. The book also cites the Harvard biochemist L.J. Henderson, who was supposed to have remarked that it was only sometime between 1910 and 1912 that a random patient with a random disease consulting a doctor chosen at random had, for the first time in history of mankind, a better than 50-50 chance of profiting from the encounter. As author Nassim Nicholas Taleb has pointed out, if you were sick prior to this time, you were better off going to a church than a doctor. A priest might say a prayer for your health, which would be completely ineffectual, but was harmless, whereas a doctor, on the other hand, might bleed their patient, which even by the 1850s was known to triple the rate of death in pneumonia. So whilst I feel extremely lucky to live in an age where the medical profession does overall improve the lives of ordinary citizens, I am sceptical of an unquestioning faith in the omniscience of doctors, and especially those that imbibe a form of the God complex. And so to the case of Dr. Elizabeth Oliver, who wrote an opinion piece in the Sydney Morning Herald recently titled, "We're paid less to do so much more. One female doctor speaks out." It's 11 a.m. I've explained to a 17-year-old apprentice how to practice personal hygiene so he doesn't get any more boils. I've counselled a domestic violence victim and organised accommodation. I've taught a fatigued and constipated 22-year-old working her first full-time job to go to bed at a decent hour, cook vegetables, and say no to her boyfriend's request that she do his laundry. They all leave with a bit more power and without a medication prescription. I'm running late. This just reeks of self-importance. Imagine an electrician writing, "It's 11 a.m. and whilst putting in a new PowerPoint, I've explained to a homeowner that she can save on her electricity bill by doing her washing in cold water. I explained to another homeowner that roof insulation helps retain heat and can therefore reduce heating and cooling costs." They all feel more empowered about how to reduce their energy bills. I'm running late. So basically, you did your job, and in the course of your job, you went that extra mile and provided your patients with a service that they may not normally get. And that means you took more time than an average doctor might have. Now, I don't know about the viewers of this video, but in my experience, GPs running late is the norm. To actually see a GP at the time you booked is a rarity. And I don't think I'm alone in that experience. And it's understandable on some level. GPs can't anticipate the problems they're going to be presented with in advance. But I digress. The point of Dr. Oliver's self-indulgent introduction is to set up what she sees as a major injustice, that female GPs spend more time with their patients, provide better care, but get paid less. The good doctor goes on. According to the Workplace Gender Equality Agency, female doctors earn less than men per hour across almost all specialties, and after correcting for hours worked. I make between 12 and 25% less per hour than my typical male colleague. Data from the Family Medicine Research Centre at the University of Sydney also shows that I'm likely to manage more issues and complexity per consultation, address social issues that affect health, prescribe less medication, and spend more time on preventative care, and as a result, I see my patients less frequently. Now, if this were all true, and we'll get to the truthiness of those claims in a minute, then I would suggest that you could charge more and advertise how wonderful you are and how much better off your patients are as a result, and you would have a burgeoning loyal customer base. But alas, Dr. Oliver does what women like her do best: whinge and moan about how things aren't fair. But back to the claims. Now, I think anything that comes after the phrase "according to the Workplace Gender Equality Agency" can probably be dismissed, given that it's a state-sponsored propaganda arm of feminist thought with a staff that is more than 80% female. The head of this agency routinely runs around the country claiming that we need to close the gender pay gap, even though the pay gap calculation doesn't take into account any of the factors that would enable you to come to that conclusion. And it's not clear why the good doctor has even cited the WGEA. This link takes you to this report from the University of Melbourne. There is only one mention of the WGEA in this report, and here it is. The overall gap between male and female earnings has been largely unchanged over time, with a slight narrowing in recent years. Male earnings were 43 to 55% higher than female earnings up until 2015, with the gap narrowing to between 33 and 39% in 2016 and 2017 respectively. It's unclear if this trend will continue. This pattern is broadly similar for other occupations. Workplace Gender Equality Agency, 2018. Now, if we go to Figure 5, the source of this data is the Mabel Survey, or Medicine in Australia, Balancing Employment and Life, done by the University of Melbourne, not the WGEA. The reference to the WGEA in this report takes you to this page that says nothing at all about doctors. However, if you go to the industry profiles, you can find a category called General Practitioner Medical Services. According to the WGEA, 84.5% of employees in this industry are women. However, we know that the number of female GPs only overtook male GPs in 2017. And if you include all medical specialties, not just general practice, women represented 42% of all medical practitioners in early 2017. So this category clearly doesn't just include GPs or medical practitioners. I suspect it includes everyone employed in that industry. And I don't know about you, but I haven't seen too many male receptionists or appointment setters in medical centres. An obvious injustice against men, which curiously the WGEA doesn't seem interested in addressing. As you can see, the total remuneration pay gap is 37% in favour of males. If you scroll down to professionals, you can see that the pay gap is 25.8%. So perhaps that is what the author is referring to. However, as is the case with just about all WGEA data, it is largely useless because it is a small, unrepresentative sample. The Mabel Survey has an interesting chart that plots hourly earnings for all doctors by age and gender. Note that there is no difference between what young doctors earn early in their careers. Then in their early 30s, things start to change. Well, I wonder why. Could it be that the instrument of patriarchy called biology intervenes? You know, women have children and take time out of the workforce, reduce their hours. Some revert to being GPs, which are generally lower paid than the specialist categories, which, remember, men still dominate. Now, her second claim is that she makes between 12 and 25% less than her typical male colleague. But that is only correct if she is a typical female doctor. It's clear from this article statistics is not Dr. Oliver's strong suit. Now, that link refers to another Sydney Morning Herald article that repeats the claim. Female GPs are known to earn less than male GPs, but exactly how much less per hour can be hard to calculate. According to the WGEA, it may be as high as 25% less, and according to the Mabel study, the largest longitudinal study of doctors in Australia, it may be as low as 12%. Dr. Oliver claims that women earn less even after adjusting for hours worked. Neither of the links she cites supports that claim. The Mabel report makes no reference to it, and the WGEA makes a point of never taking into account any factors that could actually help explain the gap. It would be nice if allegedly educated people could actually cite their sources properly. The Mabel survey data has been collected since 2008 and covers approximately 20% of all doctors, so a very large sample size, and they claim the sample is broadly representative. So let's accept that the Mabel data is accurate. The reality is that whilst women are now more than 50% of GPs and approaching 50% of all doctors, this is a relatively recent development, and as such, men are overrepresented in older age groups that earn more. Coupled with the fact that many women tend to pull back on their career because of children, and they tend to be underrepresented in higher paying specialties, this would explain a large share of the gap. Now, after telling us how much more accomplished she is as a female physician, Dr. Oliver goes on to say that, I must insert here a housekeeping phrase that amounts to not all male doctors. This requirement is a tidy example of that extra work women must do in all domains in order to justify using their voice. Many male GPs are compassionate, thorough and generous, and they are lauded for their psychosocial availability far more than a female GP of the same style, because this emotional labour is often taken for granted when women supply it. But unfortunately, Dr. Oliver can't supply any evidence to substantiate that claim. But this strikes me as the most stunningly ignorant and arrogant paragraph in the whole article. Firstly, she has it exactly backwards. Women can get away with all kinds of generalisations about men. I mean, it's now a standard reaction to a domestic violence-related incident where the man is the perpetrator to tell all men to interrogate their own behaviour. James Damour, on the other hand, went to great lengths in his now infamous Google memo to demonstrate that there is a significant overlap in populations, and that by reducing people to their group identity and assuming the average is representative, ignores this overlap, going as far as to say, this is bad and I don't endorse it. Still, these very carefully worded caveats were not enough to stop him from being fired. That said, of course, it's no big deal to say something like men are taller than women, because no one that lives in observable reality would take this to mean that all men are taller than all women. Clearly there are short men and tall women, but the average man is significantly taller than the average woman. And there is nothing really at stake here in this observation. But when it comes to things that aren't easily observable and for which claims of injustice are being made, like the claim that female doctors manage more issues per consultation, I think it's worth being nuanced about it and stating female doctors are more likely to manage more issues per consultation. The source for the Good Doctor's claim here comes from this 2016 study from the University of Sydney. Here's the relevant data. Women GPs managed 1.63 problems per encounter compared with 1.51 problems for male doctors, a whopping difference of 7.9%. Not exactly huge. Or put it another way, if you took a sample of 100 male doctors and 100 female doctors and assumed they either dealt with 1 or 2 issues per consultation, obviously it could be more than 2, but for the purpose of this exercise, we'll assume either 1 or 2. That would mean 49 male doctors would manage 1 issue, as would 37 female doctors, and 51 male doctors would attend to 2 issues, as opposed to 63 female doctors. So a male doctor has a slightly higher than 50% chance that he will manage 2 issues with a random patient, whereas a female doctor has about a 63% chance that she'll manage 2 issues. So as Damour's diagram alluded to, there is more overlap than there is difference. So it's not extra work to say that female doctors on average manage more issues per consultation or are more likely to manage more issues. It's called being accurate and honest about the data. Of course, what we're not told in this study is the type of patients male and female doctors see. It is assumed they are the same, but is that a safe assumption? For example, a male doctor is more likely to see male patients and vice versa. A female patient's more likely to present with more than 1 issue than male patients. Do they take longer? I don't know, but it might be worth asking. One doctor commenting on the Sydney University data wrote, "In my experience, male practitioners perform more procedural type services than their female counterparts, which increases their income. In addition, as female practitioners are more likely to be part-time, it results in a different patient mix. The baby boomer male GP will have far more chronic disease patients for review. Having treated them for years, they are more familiar with their history. Female GPs see a higher percentage of female patients. It would be worth looking at the difference in average consultation times for male versus female patients. Yes, it probably would be worth taking a look at, but again, the difference in average consultation times was 14.1 minutes for male doctors in contrast to 15.7 minutes for female doctors, a difference of about 11%. But as I said before, if some doctors, regardless of gender, are on average providing a better standard of care and generating better outcomes for their patients by providing longer consultation times, then surely in a free market you can up your rates to make up the difference, and your customers will pay more for that extra service because they know they're getting a better service. If there's a problem here, it appears to be Dr. Oliver's inability to market herself and sell that point of differentiation to her clients. I wonder if the good doctor has ever considered the extra emotional labour that men must endure by listening to the whiny bullshit of women like her. Somehow, I doubt someone as self-absorbed as Dr. Oliver could manage it. As usual, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I'll see you next time.